Yamamoto Nutrition, proud sponsor of RX Muscle. Visit YamamotoNutrition.com.
Dave Palumbo here with Chris Aceto for the 2017 New York Pro Preview Show. Chris, I know you're driving all the way from Maine to New York. You got athletes in the show, and I think you pulled over at, where are you now, at the rest stop, like at the Kentucky Fried Chicken rest stop?
Yeah, I think I'm like 50 feet. I'm near Evan's house. I think I can...
Trumbull.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in Connecticut. I went to see Jose this morning. And then I'm continuing to drive down so I can get to New York early.
See, you're very nice. I would never stop because I would be like, it's killing my time. I don't want to hit the city, you know, when I'm during rush hour. I would be like, fuck that. I'm just going straight there, you know, because that's a long drive.
I had to stop and get my nutrition in. Hostess donuts and a Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
There you go. The breakfast of champions. Well, Chris, we got a great lineup this year. Akem Williams, who has been spending a lot of time at Oxygen Gym there in Kuwait, is coming in. He told me the other day, we were talking, I interviewed him, and he's weighing just under 280 pounds, looking bigger than I've ever seen him. I've seen some pictures of him. He's pretty well conditioned. Obviously, he holds a lot of water, so until everything is pulled out of him, we won't really know what to expect. But you and I discussed this on Heavy Muscle Radio on Monday night, and we said that Akem's got to be the favorite going into this show.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be the favorite based on the fact that he won a show last year, probably one of the better shows of the year, Tampa.
Yeah.
He arguably, I mean, I thought he won Baltimore.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, think of the Olympia lineup, Dave, is how deep that lineup is. And he's one of the guys who are not really, you know, overlooked, yes, but at the same time, if he was like 4% harder, you know, he probably could have moved up 4 or 5 slots as well. So, I mean, he's dangerous in the Olympia lineup. So this is, you know, it's not the Olympia.
Right. And you got to remember, too, he told me on the show, you know, we see Akem doing these crazy heavy lifts in the gym. When he went to Oxygen Gym, I said, well, are they making you lift lighter and do more reps? He's like, no, I'm doing the same weight with more reps. That's the old Ronnie Coleman philosophy. Lift heavy and do high reps at the same time. And Akem is one of those genetic freaks who could actually do that, you know, if he has the right motivation. And obviously, you know, he had a trainer with him every step of the way. Matter of fact, I think he even he's been driving from Jersey to Star Fitness in Westchester just to train with one of his Oxygen Gym trainers who's staying over there in Westchester. So it's, you know, the game's on for Akem. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the town. I mean, he's got probably more muscle per square inch than anyone up on there on that stage. Will the conditioning be there? That's what we'll find out. But, you know, I believe you're right to say that Akem has to be the guy to beat here.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm sure his conditioning will be, even if it's on par with what it's been, with more muscle, he's going to look different. You know what I mean? He's going to look, you know, even more impressive than he's looked in the past. So, you know, I mean, to sit here and pretend that he's not the favorite is just make believe.
Well, a couple of years ago, Juan Morel came into this show and dominated it and beat a very good Victor Martinez. And he's back in this lineup, but he's been competing a lot this year. He was at the Arnold Classic USA. He was at the New Zealand Pro. He went to Brazil. He went to South Africa. And now he's doing the New York Pro. Does he have enough left in the tank here to pull out a win? I mean, we haven't seen him at his best this year. Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
I mean, like I said on the radio show, if you know, it seems like he's fading as the year goes on, or not necessarily fading, but looking the same, you know, maybe a little bit tighter at this show, maybe a little bit fuller at that show, maybe one show fuller but not as tight. So, you know, a tall guy with a big frame, the multiple shows work against him. I mean, they work against anyone. They worked against Hyde, you know, I think it was like 6 years ago when he was doing the Open. He wanted to do all the shows. Like I always say, it sounds good on paper, but in the real world, your body gets run down. And when your body gets run down, it just doesn't respond no matter how hard you push. And that's the aggravating part is, you reach this level of frustration where you say, okay, I'm just going to step on the gas between, Arnold, South Africa, and the New York Pro, and you do step on the gas, but you only go, your wheels just spin.
Yeah.
And that's because you've done so many shows. So I think we can expect to see essentially what we've seen at the last two shows, which is, a good Juan Morel, but not the Juan Morel that won this show 2 years ago, which was, I think, his all-time best.
Yeah. Well, the fact that he's not traveling, Chris, he's a hometown guy, might play to his advantage. Like you said, the big guys tend to get beat up on those long plane rides. Let's see what he brings to the table this weekend. Let's talk about a guy who's very well rested, Jon Delarosa, who's had he's won pro shows before. He's always right up there in the mix. He took off, a decent amount of time to give his body some rest. He's coming in here for his first show of the season. What can Delarosa bring to the stage here? Can he shock people and win this event?
I mean, yeah, he could shock people. He's pound for pound, inch for inch rather. He can be rounder than Juan, especially through the lower body, and just really, he has a more compact, rounder look to him. And it's no secret that it seems that Juan's legs are down this competitive season versus, let's say, last. And if Jon's got full legs, of course, that's going to be spell trouble for Juan.
Obviously, Delarosa very consistent as well. Obviously, height could be an issue for him in this lineup. Some of these guys are just a little taller than him, and that obviously, for some reason, we talked about this also on Heavy Muscle Radio. Big guys look better when they're just as big and when they're just as conditioned. So it'll be interesting to see how Jon finally winds up in this lineup. But I think he's going to be more dominant than we think, because he has been taking off some time and letting his body rest and respond. Let's talk about some of the new guys in the lineup. One of the guys that you're helping from the UK, Sassan Alavi, is going to be bringing in some tremendous conditioning. We know that. You've seen the pictures you've sent me, and he's impressive. Can he make an impact in this lineup in his first real attempt at New York?
I mean, if they want conditioning, yes.
Is he big enough?
What's that?
Is he big enough?
That's the question. You know what I mean? Is he big enough? I mean, he's 230. Probably walk on stage 227. Maybe 230, between 227 230. He's probably like 234 right now. And that's the $1 million question, right? Is does somebody does he have enough size to compete with bigger guys, quote, bigger guys? I mean, his detail will beat people, and he'll create the illusion for sure. I mean, he's not 210, 212, 215. He'll create the illusion of having as much muscle as a, Victor, Juan, and Jon. It's just, you got to see where they, how they compare him and where they place him.
Yeah. Let's talk about another pro debut we're going to see on this stage. We've been waiting 2 years for this. Sergio Oliva Jr., another guy that you're working with. He was super impressive when we saw him win the Nationals. We saw him up in the stage at the Pittsburgh Pro 2 weeks ago, guest posing with all the top guys in the business. And we interviewed him this past week, and he seems like he's ready to go. I mean, how does Sergio match up against the Juan Morels, the Jon Delarosas, and the Akim Williams?
I mean, I don't think, for me to answer that, I wouldn't really know till I see him next to these guys. And Sergio's got one of these bodies where, one day he's watery and looks small and flat, and then the next day he's not watery and he looks really impressive. And then for whatever reason, the next day, he looks really hard and really round, and then his body, moves around again. So for him, I think more than anyone else that I know or have worked with, it's a matter of him nailing for his body at this point in time the right condition with the right amount of fullness, and hope that makes an impact. I mean, my mind, you got to go back to Akim again. He's not Akim, right?
Right.
And he doesn't have the height of Juan, so he's got his own unique, makeup, and I think that's just like apples and oranges. I'd love to say like this is how he's going to be. I know Sass is going to be peeled, and when you're peeled, you just let the judges make up their mind. But when you're hard and not peeled, because he's not peeled compared to, let's say, a Sass, you hope that your roundness with a good, solid condition creates a good on-stage look, if that makes sense.
Now, Chris, his dad, the former Mr. Olympia, Sergio Oliva Sr., had tremendous size, had tremendous structure, but he did have a problem getting hard as well. Is this a genetic thing, you think, or is it just a muscle maturity issue with him?
I think it's probably a combination of muscle maturity always, to some degree. The longer you train, the longer you're in the sport, the better technically you should look. Yeah. And there's always a genetic component to everything. I mean, the odd thing is, like, people say, like, I'm sure people go and they'll see, like, at the show, Sass, and they'll say, peeled inside and out. And yeah, the diet helped, right? But I mean, there's got to be a genetic component to being peeled inside out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, everyone could do that, or everyone I would work with would be looking like him. So there is a genetic component. But that's like Sass's strength, right? So you got to play your strength. And so I think at this point, to make a point about Sergio, he's got nice flow, good shape. So he's got to be as round as he can without coming in and saying, oh, you know what, you try to come in too round and sacrifice condition. He's got to, like, really, get the right look for him. He's
got to toe the line. Now, one of the dark horses in this lineup, he seems to be a dark horse in every lineup because you never know, what you're going to get. But he's got the genetic tools to be very good. Jeff Beckham, at 6 foot tall, is impressive in the lineup. When you see him standing there, he's got tremendous structure. He's got his presence, stage presence is amazing. It's his conditioning. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's off. How does Beckham stack up against this lineup?
Jeff is a dark horse who gives Juan trouble. He could technically give he gives Juan trouble because of the height and the legs.
Yeah. And
at times Jeff can come in tremendous condition. And then he gives, of course, Jon Delarosa trouble because he's a taller version. I mean, he's a better leg version of. He doesn't have the upper body of Juan, but he has, if he can technically get by Juan, then he spells trouble for Delarosa too. I mean, he's underrated. He's really seems to be coming to some degree into his own. He was at the show, I think, a couple years ago when Juan won, and he looked good, and you could see the structure was there and the roundness was there, and he just needed to, add a little bit of size and tweak his condition, and he's definitely done that at some shows in the last 18 months. Yeah. So I think he could be definitely a dark horse where people say, wow, Jeff Beckham looked great.
Well, we'll see if that comes to fruition. Let's talk about the 212 division, which might be the most competitive division of the entire show. We have a tremendous lineup here, spearheaded by Milan Sadek, who won the Europa Charlotte show a couple of weeks ago, beating Craig Richardson, beating Nicholas Vuliad. How good is Sadek, and can Sadek be beaten in this lineup?
He's tremendously difficult to beat because he's got the momentum of the last show. And as Craig Richardson told me, he's not a little guy. He's wide, and he's got balance. I mean, he's got great arms in the front double bicep, big arms. He's got great leg separation. He opens up on the front double, big lats, small waist. Front lat spread, he's very wide with a small waist. I mean, standing relaxed, he's very wide with a small waist. The impact that has on judges is, it's big, right? Because you're standing there and he looks really impressive. First two poses are front double, front lat spread. Those are his two best shots.
Yeah.
So, and he's coming off that Charlotte win, which was an unbelievable 212 show.
Yeah.
Like 35 guys deep or whatever. So, he's a tremendous competitor in this class.
Now, the two-time defending champion here is Guy Cisternino, who's coming back for more. he didn't get enough. He wants more. You know, he wants to go for the three-peat. Can Guy, and you're working with him, so you're a little biased, I know that. Can Guy knock off Sadek? Can he beat him? Does he have the genetic tool set to stand next to a Sadek who's in, you know, his best shape of his life?
I think you got to see them side by side. You know, the thing
Good
about,
answer.
you know, because you know, on impact, I'd say probably not.
Yeah.
I'd say no. But sometimes, you know, this is what Jose has said a lot of times about Guy is, you know, once he works his way into a good call, you know what I mean? Although he doesn't have dominant poses, there's a lot of poses he's extremely conditioned in, and that you might not appreciate that condition until you see him next to someone.
Right.
And he edges out, you know, on this pose, he edges out people on that pose, you know, he fares well on this pose, he edges them out on that pose, and then he ends up, you know, winning 6 pro shows.
Right.
So, including, you know, the last 2 in New York. So, you know, Guy, he's going for broke. He's in great condition. And you know, he's not afraid to lay it on the line. You know, he could have just sat out this show and sat on two straight New York pro wins, but you know, he wants to get number 3.
Yeah. No weddings this weekend for him, huh?
Not this weekend. Last weekend he had last year, what did he have? A wedding. He had a wedding on the same day of prejudge. I can't even remember. It was just
his brother got married, you know. Anyway, let's talk about another truly gifted athlete, Shaun Clarida. The giant killer of this lineup for certain. He said he put on something like 15 pounds of muscle. I think he's like 170 now. I think he was like 155 last year. This guy could be dangerous. I mean, here's a guy who qualified for the Olympia last year. I think he won. Did he win Puerto Rico, Johnny? What did he win? He did win a pro show. Alaska, I think he won. Yeah. And so, I mean, this guy's dangerous. I mean, how do you think he fares in this lineup?
I think he fares very well in the lineup. You know, I think he's going to be in great condition. He's got a ridiculously small waist. You know, he's got round muscle bellies. You know, he's one of these guys you probably see backstage and think, you know, this guy's small, and then you put him under the lights with the, you know, when he's going to look great. I think taking him lightly by any of his competitors is like insane, because bodybuilding is about putting people in posing trunks under lighting with oil on, and if you have the right tie-ins, which he does, the right condition, which he does, and the right size, which, you know, I don't think size has ever been a problem. People always say he's small. I'm like, for what?
Yeah.
I mean, smaller, yeah, than like the top 3 guys in the Olympia or 5 guys in the Olympia, but I mean, is he small? No way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think he's incredibly dangerous. I'm short. Everyone's overlooking him in the show.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big mistake.
I agree. Let's talk about Craig Richardson, who I just interviewed. That interview should be up probably by the time you guys see this. He seems like he's ready. I've never seen Craig so confident before. He said, whatever you guys saw in Charlotte, I'm going to be way better than that. And he said he feels he can win this show. Do you believe that? I mean, obviously you're working with him, but you're working with a bunch of guys. So what do you think about Craig Richardson's assertion that he can come home with the victory here?
I mean, yeah, he could, you know, because he could have, you know, he was close in Charlotte. You know, he looked tremendous in Charlotte. He was like inside out in Charlotte. And I expect him to be like peeled here as well. And, you know, I think Craig Richardson, you know, has been a bodybuilder that I've worked with who's been incredibly overlooked in shows. I mean, one year in the Olympia, I know he ended up like 8th, but, you know, you could have argued easy top 5.
Right.
Because I helped people in the top 5, like 3 of the top 5.
Yeah.
So I think his can destroyed him at that show.
Yeah.
But you know, Craig has got oodles of muscle maturity, you know, and, you know, he opens up on shots too, you know, front double bicep, he looks bigger than he really is. You know, he's got the legs that are like rodents, that they start at the hip. You know what I mean? The sweep starts all the way to the top, like right under the posing trunks. You know, I wouldn't want to judge the show. That's for sure. This is going to be harder to judge than the Open. Easily,
oh yeah, easy.
You have, as Jose Raymond would say, you got an Open show, and then you got 212 competitors in 212 condition, which means, everyone I think we've just discussed, it's just a given that they're going to be at their best.
Right. Well, let's talk about the dark horse. Oh, I have my dark horse in this lineup because I think people just don't even see him coming. Ronny Rockel, who from Germany was he was a top 10 Olympian in the Open class for a couple of years. He had some health issues. He's back in the 212 division now. He's been making waves the last couple of years. How does he stack up in this lineup? Can he be a surprise, dark horse in this lineup?
Well, if he's at his all-time best, he can win.
Yeah.
That's just you have to define what his all-time best is. But if LeBron was at his all-time best, he'd win shows too.
That's true.
But what I mean by that is, I think I saw him compete a couple years ago in Prague, and he looked like close but not there, and you know what I mean. So if he's close and not there, some of these guys in wacky condition are gonna be too much for him. But if he's in tremendous condition, he's got more density because he's been training all those years, and he's got more thickness. His pecs are thick, his shoulders are thick. He's got true thickness that a lot of 212 bodybuilders don't have. Because really, he's probably sucking it down to get to 212, and he's a shorter bodybuilder too. So, there's a lot of mass on him. I didn't even know he's in the show. How about that? So how's that for a dark horse until you mentioned him?
Well, there's a lot of guys in this lineup that we're not going to have time to talk about. Sammy Trudy, who you're helping from the United Arab Emirates, is in the lineup. Alex Cabronero, who's won pro shows from Miami, is in the lineup. It's going to be a very competitive 212 division. And like I said, those are the most enjoyable divisions to watch because you really don't know who's going to emerge. Obviously, not everyone's going to come in shape. Everyone says they're in shape, but not everyone will be in shape. I believe it will come down to who's the most conditioned. I really believe that will separate the boys from the men in this lineup, and that will dictate who the champion is. And I think we're going to be a lot more surprised than people think by who winds up in that top 5, because it might be guys that I didn't name because there's about probably around 30 guys in this lineup. So let's see what happens come Saturday. I want to just mention the Classic Physique division because it is a super competitive show. George Peterson coming off his win at the NPC Nationals. We had him on the show the other day. He is just looking unbelievable. His weigh-in at the when he won Nationals was, I think he had to make 177 or something like that, or 176. This show he can weigh 10 pounds more. At 200 he looks enormous. How he's going to make that 186 mark or 187, whatever he's got to weigh, is still beyond my words. But I think if he makes it, he's got to be considered one of the favorites in this lineup.
Well, if he win it or not. Well, if he wins and he looks, when I interviewed him, Dave, I didn't know, like I said, if he was a bodybuilder, because I couldn't believe his development. And the fact is he was a bodybuilder, just like a bodybuilder, because a lot of men's physique came from, classic bodybuilding came from men's physique. And to me, he looked like he had too much muscle to have done that. So he may redefine what they're looking for. Which probably, actually, when I think of it now, knowing that Flex Wheeler's in the Olympia, then it is, it's about it's just a bodybuilding show now. I mean, it's classic bodybuilding, but they will torpedo the classic look, whatever the classic look was before, whatever people's ideals of it, an S shape, like a, V taper with like small hips and, maybe not so big thighs. It's going to just, this show will be the rocket launch for the bodybuilding second division called classic bodybuilding. And there'll be no turning back. It'll be like when, women's physique came out and now it's, women's bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's true. Breon Ansley, another top Olympian guy in this lineup, trying to make another name for himself here. Obviously, he'll be probably George Peterson's main competition, I believe, at least, in this lineup. Incredible shape. The guy has got a beautiful waistline. He's got those baseball-like biceps. How does Breon Ansley stack up against George Peterson in your mind?
I think he's going to look tremendous, and I think his height will hurt him. I hate saying that, but you know what? I watched the Olympia, and I was so impressed with him. And believe it or not, I didn't mark him down on height because that's got nothing to do with it. But he looked like, take Danny Hester out, the odd guy out. I mean, you had Arash who was tall, Sadek who was tall. I mean, there was like a lot of tall people. And even though he had like more, sinewy, tight, hard muscle than those guys, it looked almost, lightweightish compared to them. And interestingly, which I think his height may hurt him in this lineup, in terms of where's the knock.
Right.
And I hate saying that because people say it about Jose or something, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about, and here I am using it.
Let's talk about Lee Banks. I know you're a big Lee Banks fan. Lee kind of reinvented himself, going down from the 212 division down to the classic physique division. I shouldn't say down, switching over to the classic physique division, downsizing himself, but probably, like you said, the best transformation from bodybuilding to classic that we've seen. I mean, his body looks way better, I think, in the classic division.
For some reason, to me, Lee Banks epitomizes a classic look. I don't know if it's because he does, post up photos on the beach like they did in the 50s, and he's got a beach ball, but really, I think that his lines, and I think that's sort of what clarifies to some degree what classic is to me, is the flow and shape of the lines are very different looking than everyone else. I mean, the two guys we've just discussed are bodybuilders, period. So is Lee Banks, period. What I think that Lee's calling card is his lines, at least, I'll have to see in real life, but at least the what I've seen in pictures, his lines are unique looking and add a unique dimension to his physique that he might not be the absolute positively hardest, even though, maybe he will be. Or the biggest, but maybe he will be. But he's got a great physique. I think he's a super dark horse. Yeah, super dark horse.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him up on the stage. Look, it's going to be a tremendous classic physique lineup. Once again, I think George Peterson's the guy to beat in this lineup, but we'll have to find out this weekend. Men's physique, another great battle. We're going to see George Brown, who's won this show before, battling Raymond Edwards, who just stole that win at the Pittsburgh Pro over Andre Ferguson, who will also be there as well. So this should be a great men's physique lineup. Also in women's physique, we're going to see returning champion Shanique Grant come back and make her presence felt. She won this show last year. A lot of people thought she was a little too small. Obviously, the structure is amazing. She didn't make it to the Olympia because she had an accident. So this is the first time we'll see her on stage since last season. So I have a feeling we're going to see some tremendous improvements from Shanique. I know you're a very big fan of her physique, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, talk about lines and shape. I love it all. Lines. If you can bring in, tons of muscle on a super X frame and in great condition, no matter what class you in, you're going to turn heads. No matter what class you are in, and that's what she has. She has tremendous X frame, more than Tony Freeman. She looks like Linda Murray with smaller waist, right?
I would agree with that. And obviously the figure divisions and the bikini divisions are going to be stacked to the hilt as well. Steve Weinberg and Bev Francis putting on the New York Pro. It's going to be maybe one of the deepest lineups we've seen in the history of the event. They have moved it from Teaneck, New Jersey. It is now back in New York at the Westchester County Center in White Plains. I know we'll all be over there on Saturday morning, bright and early, to look at the prejudging and see what exactly is going to happen there. Now, I see Johnny put up a picture of our good friend Rita Penteato, and she'll be making her return to the stage after a 3-year hiatus. She's looking to knock off Shanique Grant. I know it's going to be a good battle. She's looking the best I've seen her in a long time, so it'll be interesting to see how the Brazilian talent matches up against Shanique Grant. I don't know, is Shanique 21 yet? I think she's still 20, right? She's like Cody Montgomery. I think
is she older or younger than Cody?
I think he's older now. What is he, 21?
He might be turning 22. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, he blows her away. He's way older. He's like a grandfather compared to her already. These guys keep getting older, and so do we, Chris, unfortunately.
Well, you know.
Well, are you driving the Mercedes down to New York?
No, I'm driving. My Mercedes is in the shop, and last time I took my Mercedes south, it broke down on the highway.
Yeah.
When I was picking up Cedric and Sean Ray, I posted on RX Muscle, and he immediately, I think, like copied it and posted it somewhere, and I think he was trying to get Cedric kicked out of the Atlantic City show.
I'm glad
I think that it was a staged fake breakdown. So that same car is I'm still having electrical issues with it 2 years later. So I've had a loaner for 1 month.
Right. Well, at least we know you'll make it in one piece. That's good. I will see you. Johnny and I will see you Saturday morning, and we'll be doing the live play-by-play all weekend long. Obviously, we have our photographer there. We'll be doing the wrap-ups and, of course, the winner interviews. It's going to be a great event. Looking forward to seeing all my New York friends again. Guys, make sure you stay tuned all weekend long to all the coverage on rxmuscle.com. I'm Dave Palumbo with Chris the Technician Aceto. We'll see you Saturday.